Hi, gang. So we're going to launch into something pretty different right now. Something a little more specific than what we've been talking about, the general theater. And that specific thing is acting. So we're going to ask the question, what is acting? We're not going to probably come to any definitive conclusions, but I want to share with you as much information as I can about, and let you form your own opinion as well, because you're as valid a scholar in this subject as probably anybody else, all right? Before I launch into the outline that I've already provided on Blackboard, and which you might have right in front of you as we go through this lecture, I want to talk to you a little bit about all the different kinds of books and training there are for actors. I have two bookshelves in my office. These are the acting books that came out of one of those bookshelves. So there's probably another equal number of acting books on acting in the other bookshelf. I just didn't feel like carrying all of those down. But this demonstrates how many acting books there are, and this doesn't even scratch the surface. One would think there might be as many acting books as there are actors. I have gone through 2 professional actor training programs, so that's 2 books right there. So the thing that I want to share with you out of this stack is, first of all, the fact that how many books there are just out of one bookshelf in my office. And this, again, doesn't scratch the surface. I don't even teach acting. It's just I happen to have all of these. I'm a professional actor myself. I have been for 25 years, and I came up mostly in the Chicago market, although I've acted in New York as well. And most recently, I did a show in Branson called $1 Million Quartet, and made stupid money doing that. Seriously, stupid money. But it was great fun. So there are a few things that I want to share with you about this stack. First of all, there are 2 broad acting styles. There's what was the acting style previous or prior to the turn of the 20th century, the turn of the 19th century, 19th century into the 20th century. So everything before that shares something in common to a certain extent, and then everything after that shares something in common as well. There was a sea change. There was a fundamental change about the turn of the century in terms of acting. And that change accompanied two events, one of which was the advent of film, right? So film and actors going from the stage and having to fill a theater with their voice and their manner and their gesture and their character and themselves, all the way down to an actor having to fill the lens of a camera. And that fundamentally changed the way actors approached acting. Because everything that they were doing on stage was too big for the camera. And so they had to bring it down. They had to scale in. And that was fundamentally changing the way acting was done. The other thing that changed was the advent, or the what do you call it? The career of Konstantin Stanislavski. Konstantin Stanislavski was a director in Russia, late 19th century, early 20th century, mostly late 19th century. And he completely changed the way we think about acting. He changed the way we approach acting, not from an exterior place, but from an interior place. And so actors began to create a role, and this book is called Creating a Role. It's one of 3 acting books that Konstantin Stanislavski wrote. And then down here is his My Life in Art, which is an autobiography. And it's also about acting. It's about all things art. But he decided that we as actors, should be approaching roles from an interior place. So we start inside with our own thoughts and our own feelings and imagining the experiences of the character and letting that grow from the outside or from the inside out, right? Fundamental change, fundamental difference in how actors approached acting, right? So we've gone from an outside in to an inside out approach to acting. Completely changed everything, and we now see the evidence of that every time we turn on the TV. Okay, cool. Let me jump back in. Wait a minute. So a couple of things too. There are more acting books, right? Acting books about the voice, how to train the voice and the body. And of course, the voice and the body are the voice, the body, and the imagination are the three tools that the actor have available to them. These books are just three of myriad that are about training the voice and the body of the actor, right? So it really doesn't even get into the imagination, or really, it doesn't get into the fundamentals of acting technique. It's really more about, hey, how do we approach acting from a physical sense, from what's going on internally, what's going on with our voice, what's going on with our body, how do we optimize, how do we use this instrument that we have. So this book, interesting. This book is called Acting with Style, and the reason it's called Style is because there are, like I said, the pre-20th century, pre-19th to 20th century, that sea change that took place, that, we call everything back then period style. We call it a style. There's an acting style that goes along with that, that's different than what we do today. That's different from the naturalistic approach that we take because of Stanislavski and his naturalistic approach to human behavior on stage. So we have these two things, we have these two styles, everything pre-Stanislavski and everything post-Stanislavski. This book is about acting in the style that's dictated by the drama pre-Stanislavski. It's pretty much the way you can think about it. And then acting books get really specific. This book is specifically about acting in Chicago. Audiences are different in Chicago? Well, yeah, they kind of are. And they're different in New York. And they're different in San Francisco. And they're certainly different in Branson. So the point is that Belinda Bremner wrote this, and I'm a friend of Belinda's. When I first moved to Chicago, I bought this book because I was working in a bookstore, in a drama bookstore called Act One Bookstore. And Belinda Bremner, the author, was teaching at Roosevelt University. So she wrote this book, and it's really more about the business side of things, how to act in Chicago, how to get jobs in Chicago, but they get real specific, you know? Books about acting get really specific. And then there's books by Uta Hagen, and Uta Hagen was trained by Lee Strasberg, who was trained by Konstantin Stanislavski. So we've got generations of people who are reaching back to Stanislavski's naturalistic method. They call it method as opposed to technique. And then there's David Mamet. And he's teaching he wrote a book called True and False. And this is just a different intellectual way of approaching, sort of brass tacks, approaching acting. And David Mamet, by the way, is a playwright. He's also a screenwriter, and he has written multiple films, probably ones that, maybe that you know, I don't know. They go back so far that I'm not even sure what references are meaningful anymore. But David Mamet wrote an acting book, and there are literally thousands. So there's a small stack of books. Okay, let's go back to the outline, and let's talk about what is acting, right? What is the question? The question of acting is the oldest theatrical art/craft. And it depends on what school you're coming from as to what you call it. Is it an an art, or is it a craft? I would love for all of us to be in the same room so that we can have that conversation, because the question of art versus craft is really interesting. I consider acting to be a craft. And that's because a character, as an actor builds, is something that is built. It's something that is crafted. It's something that is constructed. And there is a method or a technique where you start, what you put together, and where you end. And that's craft. It's not, but there is art to it, depending on how you define art. Let's talk about a couple of facts before we get into that building of an actor, or building of a role or a character. The first actor that we know about in Western culture, this is certainly not the first actor there ever was, because Asian culture has theater for thousands of years, and so does, of course, Africa. The African cultures, myriad, hundreds of cultures, every one of those cultures had theater or drama of some kind, storytelling where stories were acted out for the community, and each one of those had actors. It's just that we don't have a record of those names and those dramas and those stories and those narratives, but it is incumbent upon us to remember that this is just what we have record of. And it just so happens that it came from Greece, when Greece apparently they kept notes on everything. So we have this cat named Thespis, right? Thespis is our first known actor. And Thespis is what is the root of the word that we use for actor, thespian. Okay? And that's where we get that. Kind of cool, right? Acting requires now, the acting that we understand, that we think about, requires the merger of two fundamental principles. The first is, now, if I can misspell a word, I do. It's mimesis, or mimesis. This is a Greek word, and it's a word that it indicates something that philosophers talk about, even today, and that is mimetic theory. Or mimetic mode. And those are important. Mimetic theory or mimetic mode. I guess I'll write down mode. Okay, so let's look at the word, because the word tells us everything we need to know. You already know this, actually. What word do we have working here? We have this word right here as part of, that's going to help us define mimesis. The word is mime, right? So what is a mime? Well, a mime is an incredibly irritating person who accosts you in the park with white face and pretends to be trapped in a box, right? Yes, that is true. But it is also indicates a word, a practice of imitation, right? Imitation. So the mime, or mime, actually in France, is someone who imitates a person walking against the wind, right? Or a person trapped inside a box, right? Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. So a mime, a meme, a person who works in mimesis, imitates things, or imitates people, or imitates a person in a situation. And that superficially describes what an actor does. An actor imitates a person, another person. And so that mimetic theory, this thing right here with the Greeks, this is actually something broader that has more to do than just acting. It has to do with the definition of beauty and art in Greek culture. This only changes, this mimetic theory only changes when Plato comes along. Plato being a student of Socrates? I think so. There's Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. Plato comes along, and they're all theorists, and they're all philosophers, and they're all interested in art, among other things. Plato comes along, and he injects this notion of narrative into mimetic theory, and so suddenly it resembles more what we think of when we think of acting as it relates to mimetic mode. Okay? You don't have to worry about that. Mimesis, imitation. So superficially, that's what actors do. They imitate. It has, this mimetic theory has its roots in child play, not child's play, but child play. When children imitate what they see, that's a learning tool. It's also an entertainment tool that children use, but it is serious. It's a serious learning tool. And when we imitate, we try on the skin of someone to see how that feels. And that's really cool. I mean, that's something that we all do, and it's real, and it is something that we do as children, and it's hopefully something that we continue to do as adults. We still continue to explore this mimesis. So, it's pretending, it's dress up, it's, and as an example, the way this lands in ancient Greece is that they felt like it's not enough to, on stage, it's not enough to describe the blinding of Oedipus. Okay, so here's Oedipus Rex, right? Oedipus is the king of Thebes, and Thebes is a place in Greece. And so Oedipus, if you know the story at all, Oedipus accidentally sleeps with his mother. So he accidentally goes to bed with his mother. He doesn't know that it's his mom, and so, but he does go to bed with her. And then he accidentally, without knowing, kills his father. He thinks his father is a beggar and an irritant, and well, anyway, it's quite complex. But he accidentally sleeps with his mom. He accidentally kills his dad. It's where the Oedipal complex comes from that Freud talked about. Anyway, so Oedipus Rex is this Greek play, and at the end of the play, when Oedipus finds out that he's done these things, these horrible things, he can't live with himself, and so he wants not to see any more truth in his life, and so he blinds himself. He pulls the pins that hold his chiton. Chiton is the garment. He pulls the brooches, which are these giant pins that hold his chiton on, and he blinds himself by thrusting them into his eyes. I know, it's gross. But it's not enough, the Greeks said, for us to describe that. We have to show it. Well, we can't actually blind an actor every time we do Oedipus Rex, although I've known some actors that deserve it. No, what they did was they took the brooches, and they thrust them toward the eyes, and these brooches were tricked out with fabric rolls, and those fabric rolls would release, and red fabric rolls would release and stream down, and that would be the blood that ran down his eyes. And so that would be the blinding of Oedipus, and we would see the outcome of that action. We would imitate the blinding of a person, and that's the effect. That's the special effect that was used. The other phenomenon that is combined with mimesis is embodiment. What is embodiment? Well, embodiment is the thing that now we appreciate, now we indulge in. Not really before, but now, after the turn of the century, we understand the importance in approaching a character and endeavoring to make that character as real as possible, as real as humanly possible. Now our actors indulge or endeavor toward embodiment, and that is to use the entirety of the actor's emotional reservoir and intellectual reservoir, and we're crafting a character from the interior life of the actor. And so not only are we dressing up like Oedipus, but we're also examining our own lives and saying, I may not have ever slept with my mom, and knock wood, and I may not have ever killed my dad, but you know what? I felt like killing my dad. He was a jerk several times, and there were times that I could have killed him. And I know what that feels like. I know what that rage feels like, and I know how guilty I felt afterwards when I thought about how bad that would be, right? Okay. That's embodiment. I'm reaching in and I'm extracting from my own life and from my own heart and my own emotional reservoir and my own mental reservoir. And when I say reservoir, what I mean is that we have an emotional reservoir. We have this pool of emotion that we can draw from and recreate an experience perhaps that we've never had, but we can closely approximate that, and that's embodiment. We can't divorce ourselves of our arms and our legs, neither can we divorce ourselves of our mind and our hearts. All right? So we use our voice, our minds, our body, our emotion, and we craft a character from all of those things, given the dictates and the parameters of the drama, the text. And that is how you make a character, basically. Mimesis and embodiment. You got any questions? Shoot me an email. You don't think that this is legit? Shoot me an email. That's cool too. I want to hear what you have to say about this. And if you ever want to check out a book about acting, please just come to my office, all right? And take a look at what I've got, because they're really cool books, okay? Talk to you later.